All right, let's get into something that's, well, it's pretty fascinating, but also kind of scary for a lot of people. We're talking about the so-called three-generation curse, why family fortunes seem to just disappear.
So get this. The source material we're looking at says a staggering 70% of wealthy families lose it all by the second generation. I mean, just let that sink in. All that hard work, the building, the sacrifice, poof, gone in just one generation.
And it gets worse. By the time the grandkids are in charge, that number jumps to an incredible 90%. 90! It's so common, people literally call it a curse, but what if it's not some mystical curse? What if it's something we can actually understand?
Well, that's the core idea here. The failure isn't in the stock market. It's not a financial problem at its root, it's an educational one. You see, the second generation gets the cash, but they don't get the playbook. And by the third generation, they don't get the cash or the playbook.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to look past the market fluctuations and all that. The source material points to something deeper, a specific mindset, a way of thinking that, believe it or not, basically dooms the family fortune way before the bank account hits zero.
So what is this killer mindset? Well, it all boils down to one thing: thinking short term. It's a worldview that's laser focused on right now, on immediate comfort and personal gratification, and not much else.
And the source gives us a really powerful example of this, the biblical story of King Hezekiah. So he's told that his family line is headed for total disaster, right? And his reaction is basically, whew, glad that won't happen while I'm still around. He was perfectly fine with his own comfort and totally indifferent to what would happen to his own grandchildren. Ouch.
And this sets up a really clear comparison, right? You've got two completely different ways of thinking. There's the Hezekiah model, which is all about my days, what's good for me right now. And then there's the Solomon model, which looks 3 generations down the road to the children's children. One path leads to a crumbling legacy, and the other, well, that's the one that's built to last.
Okay, so if that short-term thinking is the problem, what's the fix? The solution proposed here is a pretty radical shift in how you see things. It's about taking your eyes off your own retirement plan and instead starting to plan for your great-grandkids. This whole philosophy really hinges on one specific idea from the book of Proverbs. It totally redefines what a good man is. It's not about what you have or what you buy, it's about the legacy you prepare for your grandchildren. See the difference? The goalpost isn't your kids, it's the generation after them.
And the argument is that this long-term thinking acts like a psychological guardrail. It keeps you on the straight and narrow. I mean, think about it. If your goal is to build something that lasts for people you might not even meet, are you really going to gamble it all on some risky short-term bet? Probably not. It forces you to protect that foundation.
But, okay, having a vision is one thing. How do you actually pass it down? That's the real challenge, right? How do you make sure these ideas and this wisdom actually stick around when you're not there to remind everyone?
This is where the idea of a covenant comes in. It's the central mechanism. The idea is to take financial rules and elevate them. They're not just good advice that your kids can ignore, no. They become a sacred, non-negotiable family obligation. It literally turns financial strategy into family law.
To make this feel less abstract, the source uses a really interesting example, the Passover Seder. It's framed as more than just a religious ceremony, it's an annual financial education ritual. It's a way to pass down economic wisdom hidden inside a powerful, sacred story. Think about how it works. The youngest kid asks the question, why is this night different? Then the father tells the story of slavery, liberation, and how they were provided for. But embedded in that story is a powerful economic lesson. Dependency is a form of slavery, and true freedom requires sacrifice and work. It's not a boring lecture, it's performed, it's lived, it becomes part of the family's DNA. And here's a really practical example of one of these covenant rules, the rule of thirds. It's simple. A third of your wealth in land, a third in your business, and a third in cash or liquid assets. Now, this isn't taught like some modern MBA class portfolio theory. It's presented as a sacred, time-tested rule, a boundary designed to protect the family from getting too greedy on one hand or too scared on the other.
All right, so let's tie this all together. What's the big takeaway here? The whole framework is about a fundamental shift in thinking. You stop just managing money and you start intentionally building a culture of stewardship. It really comes down to a few key principles. You teach your children that they aren't owners of the wealth. They're managers or stewards. You frame debt not as a useful tool, but as a kind of slavery. And you make sure they understand that an inheritance isn't a lottery win. It's seed money that needs to be planted and grown for the next generation.
And the final point the source makes is a powerful one. If you leave your kids millions of dollars, but you don't leave them any wisdom, that money will actually destroy them. Without the right mindset, without the framework to handle it, the wealth itself becomes the curse.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. What if the most valuable inheritance isn't an asset at all? What if it's an identity? Maybe the real secret to making wealth last for generations isn't about the money, but about embedding a specific financial identity deep into the heart of a family. Because what you pass on in character, that might just be infinitely more powerful than what you pass on in cash.